What's going on? You're listening to WSOU. I am Nick, and I am here with Jesse from Vivian K. What's going on, dude?
Hey, not much. We're cruising around in the van.
Now, a lot of cool stuff for you guys. Now, your sophomore album, it's been out for a couple months now. It came out in October, but the physical copies just came out a few weeks ago. So how's that been so far?
It's pretty cool. We actually are experiencing delays with the physical copies of the record. So we haven't been selling them on the road. We don't have any of the physical copies yet.
Okay. Now, I thought that was interesting that you put it out digitally first and then put it out physically after. Was that a certain decision for that?
It's mostly because I'm an antsy bastard, and I basically need the music out as soon as possible all the time.
I can understand that. But this album, Versus, very interesting. I listened through it yesterday, and I really do enjoy it a lot. The thing I like, I think, the most, though, is definitely the lyrics. I went back and read through them all after listening to it, and very interesting subject matter. Now, can you give me a little bit on what the headspace is? I don't know if you write or if it's like a collaborative effort, but what's the headspace kind of for the writing process for you guys?
Well, it is kind of a collaborative effort. It is. I do a lot of the writing. It's kind of just, sometimes it's like I hear a song that I want to make my own personal version of, essentially, and then other times I just know some kind of a message that I think needs to be conveyed in a song and just go about trying to put it together,
Yeah. Okay. Because the thing that I really enjoyed was just the lyrical, the way things were phrased and like the little, the deeper meanings behind certain things. I thought it was very intricately well done.
Yeah, me and the guitar player Daniel, who do most of the singing, actually met in a creative writing class.
Oh, okay.
So English is our forte, I guess you could say.
Oh, that's really cool. Now, also the fact that all three of you share singing duties. How do you guys kind of go about deciding who does which part? And because that's a very interesting thing to have, every single member to have a vocal part in the band.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's a matter of whose voice just is more appropriate for conveying the message. But to be honest, most of the time it's like whoever is going to have the easiest time doing it.
Okay.
Because drumming and singing is pretty difficult, and some of the guitar parts are pretty tricky, and it makes it easier to be able to switch off who's responsible for it, basically.
Right. Now, with the album cover, what exactly is going on there? Because just like the songs and like you said, very intricate parts and stuff, there's a lot going on in the album cover as well. So what exactly did you want to get across with that?
Okay, so the album art was actually Cass, the bass player, who's my romantic partner as well. She did that whole thing, and it was kind of over the course of the winter that we spent together in Chicago. We were writing the album, finishing the songs up and stuff like that, and we'd just gotten back from a tour that we did together, and it was kind of just based on the journey we wanted people to go on with us, from the backseat of the van, so to speak, where it feels there's something supposed to be kind of interdimensional about it, even though it's kept right here on Earth by the presence of the vehicle,
Right. Okay. I like that because it definitely, when you're listening to the songs, and if you look at it at the same time, it makes sense in a way. I can see, but it was still I didn't get the complete where it was going, because there's just so much going on, the octopus tentacles in there.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of just, she likes weird body horror stuff like that, so that's kind of just her personality coming out.
Okay. And now, since this is your second album, what was kind of the process from this one coming out of, I know you had, I think it was an EP before your debut album. So what was this step in the band going forward? Well,
we met these people in Philly that run this record label, Creep, and they took an interest in our band and gave us some. They have a really cool studio. They gave us free recording time, and it was basically just knowing that we could do it that forced us to assemble some songs, because we kind of just are always pouring out new music, whether or not we record it. And we just, when it came time to do this, we were like, all right, let's just take what we already think are the best ideas we have so far and go in. We actually recorded almost twice as much stuff as we ended up putting out, and we chopped like half of it out.
Okay. And with this album, like you said, I read somewhere that the song structures, you kind of go against like the norm, verse, chorus. So what kind of, how do you go about writing a song, since there isn't like a set structure? Is it just kind of whatever comes to you, or do you piece things together?
Sort of, but I always there's always some sort of lyrical idea that compels a song into completion, and also I am a firm believer that a song has a verse and a chorus, whether or not you put it there, and whether or not it repeats exactly the way that you expect it to. So I kind of just I think that I have these pop structures in my head, even when they're not being accurately conveyed to the average listener. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So, yeah.
And now you guys started out in Orlando and moved to Chicago. So what kind of spurred the move for you guys?
I spent my whole life growing up in Florida, and we were, all three of us were in a bunch of different bands around Orlando, and we were kind of I guess they were hardcore bands kind of, and we were kind of sick of hardcore music. I mean, not really. I still like hardcore music, but playing those kinds of shows is different.
Right.
And we just wanted to do a different thing, and then, plenty of social reasons why, different falling outs with different friends and stuff. And we're like, let's just pick up somewhere completely brand new. And we had kind of a good opportunity to live with some, in a cheap space in Chicago. So we jumped on it, really.
Okay. And now, has that kind of helped you guys, you think, with trying to get the music across? Is that a different kind of scene in Chicago?
Yeah, in a lot of ways we ended up, playing some really good, important shows for us. But in Orlando, it was we would play shows with every kind of band you could think of, from people with ukuleles to death metal bands. And in Chicago, it was kind of just only math rock, emo sort of bands. There was so many bands that it was very easy to just get snugged into a scene that was very small and comfortable really quickly,
Right. So you prefer kind of being with a similar kind of thing than the all over the board?
I kind of don't. I actually think now that we've been there for a while, I prefer weird shows where anything can happen. And not always, because we played a lot of shows that were I was just saying with ukuleles. I think the more diverse the shows can be, the better.
Right.
But there are occasions where that is totally not the case, and it's better to just play with bands that you like, that are like you. But in general, I like the crowds to be diverse, so I think it only goes without saying that I like the bands that are playing to be diverse too, And we're kind of a weird band. We don't really fit in with any one thing always.
Right. And that goes with your DIY kind of way of going about things. And I feel do you feel today it's almost easier and more difficult with DIY? Because I feel with obviously the internet and whatnot, you can reach a lot more people than you could beforehand doing DIY. So I feel DIY now may be almost the way to go for a lot of bands.
Yeah, for sure. It is. It's not without difficulty, though.
For sure,
there's so many things about DIY. We get ghosted by people, we get screwed over by people all the time, and not that we wouldn't if we were, if a booking agent was doing everything for us or whatever, but it is kind of the only way to go for us, because I didn't grow up in a musical environment, a music business kind of environment. I just kind of grew up playing in punk bands that just when you can, you go on tour, and then when you can't, you work a shitty job, and then you go back on tour. Sorry, I cursed. I can't. I don't know what the
So there's no stride to try to one day go for the, around trying to get like the label and having all that, but it's just, want to keep it the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I want to stay always true to art and making, the art is the most important part, and I can't make any, I literally cannot make compromises. Like, if anybody starts telling me what needs to be done to song structures and riffs to make them appealing, that is like, I can't deal with that,
Right.
So, but mostly, I mean, in some ways, I would like the burden of booking every single show to be off of Danny's back, because he's kind of the one that does a lot of the internet outreach stuff, and gets in touch with a lot of people, and it's more work than we can do sometimes, like having to like learn complicated songs and play them really nicely every night, but then also be the person that calls a jillion people to see if we can just get on one show, and then greet the people and do all of the hospitable things when you need to be in a headspace to play a show. I don't know. There's good and bad to it,
For sure.
Yeah.
And now with the DIY, there definitely is, like you mentioned, you play a lot of different unorthodox kind of venues. What's kind of been like the strangest place you've ever played?
The strangest place we've ever played. We played, a couple different really weird ones. I mean, we played like the Elks Lodges and Veterans Halls,
right,
and weird stuff like that. We played an office building recently that was like this like kind of hip retail office in Chattanooga, where this person that owned it just kind of let these kids have shows there on the weekends, and it was like people were legitimately moshing in office chairs, like rolling around on the floor. There was a lot of space. It was very bizarre.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I also wanted to talk about, there is one song title that really stuck out to me, and it was kind of wanted the backstory, but it's 9/11 somewhere. What exactly is that supposed to mean? Because lyrical content, there were small little things where it's like, okay, maybe I could see how that connects, but I wanted to know the big picture of that.
Yeah. Okay. So the idea behind that song is that the subject matter of the song is a conspiracy to the listener to some extent, and the idea of it is that it's this person who had lost somebody that they love in 9/11. We're not, really trying to make light of it, even though I realize that song title is a joke.
Right.
The song is actually supposed to be about somebody who lost somebody in 9/11, and there's nowhere for them to place their sadness, because where they want to put their blame is not the trusted public opinion of who to blame for that. So it's kind of like they're stuffing inside their grief because it's a conspiracy, because nobody knows what happened exactly,
Wow. Yeah, I like that. I didn't even... That's really deep. I like that a lot. That's pretty cool. When I was listening to it, I was like trying to pick it out. It's like, I'm going to figure out what this means. And there were like little pieces, and I saw connections. So I was like, I have to find out. There has to be something else that I'm missing. But okay, that's definitely interesting. But and then of course, I don't know if you get this a lot, but I feel like any band that's named after like an actual name, like who is Vivian K? Is that a real person, or is there a story behind that?
Yeah, there is a pretty adorable story. When I was little, when I was like an infant, I would put my mouth on my mother's chin, and she would make this noise that was like, and it would like calm me down and tickle me. And so growing up, she would always call me her little Vivian, and she ended up calling me that kind of more than my actual name. Oh. But it was always kind of an embarrassing thing, to have to explain to people. And at a certain point when I started this band, I wanted it to be like symbolic of the things that had once embarrassed me that I was trying to let go of, kind of. Wow. So I just named it after that.
Well, what's the K part? That's just
the K is actually like my middle name.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Is there anything you want to add wrapping up? That's all I had for you.
No, this has been fun. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem, man.